What's going on, guys? I'm the Walrus Jedi, and welcome to another video. A little over a week ago, I asked in a community post on my channel, do you have any Star Wars hot takes or controversial opinions? I might make a video going over them. So this is the video going over some controversial opinions about Star Wars. So if you like these kinds of videos, then please consider liking and subscribing, and hitting the notification bell for more, and without further ado, let's just get right to the comments. So first up, we have Clone Captain Keeley, and he says, Boba Fett never needed the voice change in the special editions. I disagree with this in terms of, well, Boba Fett is a clone of Jango Fett, so he needs to sound like Jango Fett. If Boba Fett was not a clone, then yes, I would agree, don't bother changing the voice, but given the fact that Boba's a clone, I think that was actually a necessary change. Raiden's Room, Return of the Jedi is the most enjoyable of the original trilogy. I agree with that. It's my favorite of the original trilogy. It's a really good ending to not just the original trilogy, but the saga as a whole. So, I agree with that. And before we go to the next one, I will share one of my own. I don't know how controversial this is. I prefer Jango Fett to Boba Fett. I always have, ever since I was young. I always thought Jango Fett was cooler. Jango Fett does more in his movie than Boba Fett does. Boba Fett really just captures Han Solo. Does Boba Fett capture Han Solo, or is Han Solo captured by the Empire and then the Empire gives Boba Fett Han Solo? In terms of the expanded universe, I haven't got into much of Boba Fett's storyline. Lego Bro 2 says that the Star Wars EU does not really understand the Force at times, especially the early EU. I mean, in the book I, Jedi by Michael A. Stackpole, a great book by the way, go read it, the main character, Corran Horn, is able to do things with the Force that most high-ranking Jedi could not do. And he had minimal training. Another one I have is that the Andor TV series doesn't really align with Lucas's original vision. What I mean is that Lucas would never have made something as mature and as gritty as Andor. Well, for the I, Jedi and the EU not understanding the Force at times, this reply by Reality Squared, I feel like does a pretty decent job of explaining it. True, but you're forgetting what they thought Jedi Mastery even back then was. Jarek thought it was the equivalent of all-powerful. It's just a different / weird point of view in my opinion. George greenlit some of these things pre-PT. Exactly. If a Jedi did some weird stuff in one of these books, I guarantee that George Lucas greenlit that. That's something that George Lucas did check on. He wouldn't have allowed Jedi to do stuff that Jedi shouldn't do. If a Jedi in one of these EU books, in the Bantam era or the Del Rey era, if they do any Jedi power at all, it's what a Jedi can do, they would have had to ask permission and to show George Lucas, I want a character to do this Force power, is that okay? And if George Lucas wasn't okay with it, he would have said no. George even said in the making of The Phantom Menace, he was trying to convey a stronger, faster, and more powerful fighting style to the original trilogy, reminiscent of the comics, Dark Empire, and Tales of the Jedi more specifically. The standard of what Jedi Mastery and power was had just got upped more whenever George started making prequel-era stuff. As for Andor not aligning with Lucas's original vision, well, of course it doesn't align with what George Lucas did, because it was made by someone who isn't a Star Wars fan and doesn't care about Star Wars. Why would Tony Gilroy care about George Lucas's original vision? But I have to disagree with the point that George would never make something mature and gritty. He was developing Star Wars Underworld, which would have been a more mature and gritty show about the lower levels of Coruscant. Matthew says, not really the most controversial, but I believe Disney Star Wars is not canon. A lot of people do not believe it is canon, because it isn't. That's not a very controversial opinion around these parts. Only Good Games Official says, the expanded universe reaches greater heights and more epic stories than the 6 films. Well, I have not had the pleasure of delving into all of the EU yet, but a good chunk of what I've read thus far is really good. I think I agree with that, at least to some degree. Darth Plagueis is a really good book. Is it better than at least some of the movies? Yes, but it also enhances the Phantom Menace quite a bit. So, Kenobi's really good. Darth Bane, Path of Destruction's really good. The Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is better than Revenge of the Sith, because it does what Revenge of the Sith does, but more. It's fantastic. Then we have Skywalker Academy. I have a few. Note, all of these come from a place of love from Star Wars. Bleeding Kyber crystals is better than Sith using synthetic crystals. If you're not familiar with how Sith get their red lightsabers in the Disney canon, yes, they do something called bleeding, where they meditate on it and channel their hate and whatever, and it makes it turn red. And then the Sith using synthetic crystal. I'm not super familiar with how they make it. I think they make the synthetic crystal, and I also think they have to meditate, and it takes a while. I think the Sith using synthetic crystals is a good avenue to go down. The Sith aren't natural, so why would they use something natural? The Old Republic Jedi and Sith are overpowered to the point of absurdity sometimes. What's wrong with the Jedi of the past and the Sith being really powerful? I feel like for the most part, their abilities aren't way more overpowered than any other Jedi or Sith of the era. So I disagree with that one. Palpatine should have never come back, both in Disney canon and Legends. I agree with that in both cases. I don't care how well Dark Empire is told. Bringing back a dead Palpatine is dumb. It just is. Now, Dark Empire does a better job of explaining how and why Palpatine comes back, but still, I don't think that's very interesting to bring back dead characters, and we all know that Disney has a really bad habit of bringing back dead characters and not doing anything with them. Purple is the most overrated lightsaber color. Context. So whenever me and friends would make our own Star Wars characters, they'd always have purple lightsabers, and whenever there are polls of favorite color, purple wins by a mile, and I just find it annoying. Really? Purple is my favorite lightsaber color because purple's my favorite color. If your favorite color is a lightsaber color, you're gonna pick that, are you not? It's your favorite color, and then they make a lightsaber color for it. Anakin Skywalker is not the great hero of Star Wars. Interesting. Why? Because he falls to the dark side? Well, Anakin is a very complicated character. He does a lot of heroic things, but also a lot of villainous things. All the good he did is kind of counteracted by all the bad he did, because he did a lot of bad. Yes, at the end he came back to the light side and chucked the Emperor down the chute and defeated the Emperor. And Anakin is the main character, and he is a hero of Star Wars. But he's not the greatest hero, because the greatest hero wouldn't have so much red in their ledger. If you look at it, he spent more time as a Sith than as a Jedi. So he was 23 years a Sith and then 12 a good guy, and then at the very end came back. He spent almost double his time as a Force user as a bad guy. So that's interesting. A gray Jedi does not make sense within Lucas's view of the Force. I agree, I'm not a big fan of gray Jedi. Light and dark, and it's impossible to use the dark side without being corrupted. I agree. You tap into the dark side, you'll want to tap in again, and again, and again, and then eventually, guess what? You fall into the dark side, because that's how that works. You can't use it a little bit here and there for the greater good and all that BS. Yep. Alright, and that's all that Skywalker Academy has to say. Auditect says Sam Witwer is a better Darth Maul than the Phantom Menace voice actor, who I believe is Peter Serafinowicz or something along those lines. I mean, Maul in Phantom Menace, his voice, he's so calm and nonplussed. And then you see Darth Maul in like TCW. It's quite a different, because he's always angry. I guess that makes sense in the context. I feel like for what little in Phantom Menace he talks, it's really good. it is a shame that we couldn't have heard more. So I think that is controversial. I do like Sam Witwer voicing Darth Maul, but I don't know if I would say that he's better than Peter Serafinowicz. So I think I will disagree with that. Then you have Plaidley. I like the sequel trilogy. 7 and 8 are on par with the original trilogy. Disagree. The sequels are better than the prequels. Disagree. I disagree with all of that. And liking the sequel trilogy, I think, is controversial, especially liking it better than the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy. Episode 9 is not on par with the original trilogy, but it's better than the prequels, which I do not understand because Episode 9 is a dumb movie. Palpatine coming back and they don't even explain it. So many dumb lines.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Oh, they fly now!
They fly now?
They fly now!
Right! 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 Right!
That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
Plot is stupid. Bits of that they go to a planet and there's a huge chunk of the Death Star still around, which doesn't make any sense because if you watch the movie, the Death Star blows up. If there's pieces, they're little pieces. They're not big. It's not like a quarter of the Death Star is still around. That's dumb. I disagree with this. And no, 7 and 8 are not on par with the original trilogy. 7 is just a crappier version of A New Hope, really. It's a crappy retelling of it. You know, desert planet, the person is on the desert planet and has to go join the rebels. They even both get droids on said desert planet that lead them to the rebels. And, you know, the Resistance, it's the rebels again. They just call it something different. They have Starkiller Base, which is just a big version of a Death Star. It's the same thing. Oh, we can blow up multiple planets from across the galaxy. Dumb. Rey beats Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel. First try. Stupid. So you ruin your villain. Episode 8? No. The movie that divided the fan base is not better or on par with the original trilogy. Disagree with that. And the sequels are not better than the prequels. And then, to end, we have Andrew Helm. Controversial opinions. Well, I considered Return of the Jedi the least enjoyable of the 6 Star Wars movies. A lackluster payoff for everything set up in Empire Strikes Back. It didn't help that pint-sized teddy bears with spears and bows and arrows played such a prominent role. I was 18 when Jedi came out, so this definitely wasn't something I wanted to see in the final episode. Interesting. I loved Return of the Jedi. Although if I had to say, like, what's the weakest part of Return of the Jedi, I would say the stuff on Andor. I think it's the least interesting. I love the Tatooine opening and the scenes on Dagobah and the stuff with Luke and the Emperor and Darth Vader. The best part of the movie is the stuff with our main hero and the villains. The ending, the celebration on Endor, I like seeing the planet celebrating the Empire crumbling. I love that. That's awesome. And in the special edition, we got to see Naboo and Coruscant. As for Ewoks, you know what? It's never really bothered me that these, and they're primitive, beat the Empire, but it's their planet, so they have the advantage in terms of they've lived there for millions of years. I don't know, thousands of years. They've lived there a long time. They've been there longer than the Empire has. Ewoks know that planet like the back of their hands. I mean, come on. They have that advantage. And then you have some rebels to kind of help. In the unauthorized Star Wars Compendium by Ted Edwards, Little Brown and Company, 1999, it had a section entitled 50 Reasons Why Jedi Sucks. So I wasn't alone in being a tad disappointed by the final film in the original trilogy. I have heard this before, that Return of the Jedi is the weakest of the original trilogy. It's got some really good stuff, but I disagree with this. You probably were expecting something a little bit more, I don't know. Well, you definitely weren't expecting primitive teddy bears to stop the Empire. Well, those are the comments and controversial opinions. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any controversial opinions about Star Wars. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, thanks for watching.